A lot has been said about government debt. It was at over $9 billion as of July this year. Government needs money to fund its initiatives and policies. How will you deal with government debt? Can you tell the people how much will you borrow in year one onwards, and how will you reduce debt? Mr. Chaudhry.
Thank you, Vijay. Yes, government debt is a matter of great concern. Unfortunately, it has ballooned over the last few years to unsustainable levels. What we intend to do is to, in our first year, to borrow locally to fund the deficit. We will not be borrowing abroad. We think that there is local capacity to fund budget deficits. Our foreign reserves are at acceptable levels, and so we will, by not borrowing overseas, we will be reducing the overseas debt at least by 4% in the first year. So that is our strategy, and of course, by growing the economy, by reshaping the economy, we hope to reduce the debt levels further, to increase the government revenue, to reduce expenditure, to cut out wastage, to better the compliance method, revenue compliance, and also to enhance accountability and transparency in governance.
You say you will reduce overseas debt, but you'll increase domestic debt. By what percentage will you increase it? And what will be your total debt?
15%. The domestic debt will increase by 15%.
By 15%, but you're still saying that you will have lower debt. How can that be?
No, I didn't say that we'll have a lower debt. We'll reduce the deficit. We will cut back on unnecessary expenditure, and we will fund the deficit by local resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhry. Mr. Naidu.
So, Vijay, we talk about the debt as being 9 billion. In fact, there's another billion on top of that, which is contingent liabilities of government, which are debts owed by large corporations such as Fiji Airways, Fiji Sugar, which they're not really in a position to pay. So, in fact, the debt is higher than 9, and it's you might as well say it's 100% of gross domestic product. And Mr. Narube, ex-central banker, will I'm sure tell you that once you've crossed 80% of GDP, the alarm bells go off. Lenders start to get nervous, they stop lending to you. This is not a problem we can fix in a year or 2 years. The point's been made, we have to grow the economy. If you grow the economy, of course, debt as a proportion of GDP comes down and it becomes a little bit more manageable. But this requires a strategy that will take 2 or 3 years. You know, the reality is that there are urgent and pressing concerns on infrastructure. You look at water and sewage, you look at power. We've got some systems, particularly in Suva and other urban areas, which are on the verge of collapse. We cannot avoid the need to borrow, probably from multilateral institutions at low rates of interest, as this government has begun to do, has apparently only just learned how to do. And that's going to be the likely position for the next couple of years. It's not possible to instantly manage that down without severely disrupting the economy. So this is a medium-term problem. It's going to take us 2 or 3 years to get this under control. But there's a whole series of strategies that we will need to follow. And one of the things that we must do is ask. It's really important that we get everybody into the room, all of the stakeholders. We need a national economic summit. We need ideas and contributions from the private sector, from all of the political parties on how we are going to manage this. We've got to stop pretending that the government has all the answers.
Thank you, Mr. Naidu. Mr. Kamikamida, what's People's Alliance plan?
Thank you. Perhaps just the first point I'd like to make in terms of our view of the manifesto is that what we've tried to do is ensure that because one of the concerns we have is we don't know what awaits us when we get into government. So what needs to happen is, or what the approach we've taken is to be conservative and try and introduce initiatives within the current envelope of the budget. What that means is in terms of deficit funding, it remains, the share of foreign and domestic debt remains the same. But because we've introduced some taxes, there is a reduction, slight reduction in the net deficit as a percentage of GDP from about 7.4% to 7.2%. I think the important issues to share when you're talking about managing the debt is, one, it is not a short-term problem. It is a medium to long-term problem. So a couple of things that People's Alliance government will do. One is look at the wastage that is happening in government. Some professionals say that it's up to $500 million in terms of wastage. If that is true, therein lies some opportunity to address the debt concerns. In other words, we can start perhaps looking at reducing the debt. The second is, which is the larger question is, and this is, Richard's shared this, is the need to grow the cake. It's interesting, I have an article here that the governor of the Reserve Bank at TOPEX said that beyond tourism, there is no other industry. And therein is the problem. The country or the government has failed to diversify the economy.
We'll talk about that in greater detail later on. Mr. Narube.
Yeah, when you talk about that, I think we need to take a backward step and say, what has caused the debt? What is the reason for this high debt? And when you take that step, you realize that debt is created by spending more than what you earn. And this government is a spending government, right from day one. I know that. I worked with them for 2.5 years. They started to spend very seriously. And that is what has created this debt. So when you spend that money, you need to really look at the impact of spending on the economy, the efficiency of government spending. Because of the high wastage that has gone with the high spending, the impact of government spending on the economy is much lower than what it is. So it does two things. First, the debt payment crowds out the essential expenses. That's already happening. 44 cents in every dollar that we give government in taxes are channeled to paying debt. So that's one thing. And the second, if we do not improve the efficiency of expenses by reducing wages, we're going to hit a brick wall soon. You're right. Debt to GDP is now close to 100% without contingency liabilities. You put all the contingency liability, my calculation is 110% of GDP. That is 110%. So that's serious debt, which needs to be repaid. The problem about that is that given the low efficiency of government spending on debt, we will not be able to finance that higher level of debt. More and more money will be needed to pay debt than to go to essential spending. That is where we have the problem. So for us, we go to the root of it, go to the spending of government, reduce that, improve the efficiency or the wastage, take away the wastage, and improve the services.
Thank you, Mr. Narube.